All right. So anyways, here for IntelliPlex dashboard webinar. We're going to take a deep dive on the IntelliPlex dashboard. A little bit about us as Revolution Group. We're a full service technology provider from both the traditional IT infrastructure and strategy to full service ERP MES services from selection, deployment, optimization, and development. We are Plex's first real partner in the industry, and we've done 100+ Plex implementations. Our consultants have 20+ years of experience for our consultants. We have a pretty experienced roster of consultants. And then from our ERP services side of things, we do everything from application implementation, from ERP, MES, QMS, ANO, APM, PM, and we help our customers from really cradle to grave for Plex products. I'm really most proud of like our integration work that we do. We help our customers a lot with either starting the relationship with Plex and integrating with another ERP system, or really reaching into like a phase 2 implementation of Plex, like a Grapevines or Configure One or Sigma Nest, of reaching into another like industry best practice solution and getting more capability out of your Plex investment. We've done thousands of Vision Plex applications and APIs for our customers. Okay. Agenda for the day. We're going to come as no surprise, we're going to build out a shop floor dashboard. And then we're also going to go through the IntelliPlex dashboard hierarchy. There's really starting from the data level to visualization and bringing that together for the overall dashboard at the end there. And then, right, we're going to build a dashboard together. Okay, housekeeping. You can thank Gemini AI for the housekeeping picture there. So as questions come up through the webinar, please ask questions. If we don't have time to get to everyone's questions today, we are going to answer your questions and then post those results to the community. And the best way to ask those questions is with the little question icon there in your GoToWebinar. It's got a little question mark. Just type your question. Kathleen on the call here, she's going to be reviewing these questions as they come in. And if they're a really, really good one, we're going to stop and answer that question through the webinar. And then kind of rest assured, we will answer all of your questions and kind of post those and share those out with the community. And as well as if you have another idea for a webinar topic you'd like us to do a deep dive and cover, you could do that. You can let us know by, again, posting it as a question in the webinar, emailing me directly, or posting in the developer user group. And either that'll come out as a webinar, or we'll have that be a topic through our developer user group meetups. Okay, so what are we making? So we're making a dashboard to monitor a single line. The use case of this would be to have this up on your line for a production supervisor as they are walking past the line, for them to see the current status of the WorkCenter and the history of that, for how reliably it's been up or down. We're going to show the production scrap for the line, and we're also going to show a WorkCenter log view so they can go through the full log and see the history of the different events, downtime, any notes that the operators could have taken on there. And for this webinar to really, really be powerful, it should have OEE and the 3 metrics that go into it: availability, quality, and performance. This will be coming as a part 2 for this webinar. Unfortunately, we're waiting for some of the data sources to be whitelisted, i.e. exposed to IntelliPlex for us to be able to use. But essentially, those real-time data sources, you're going to be able to use them just how we're setting up the dashboard today. Well, like I said, we're going to come out with a part 2 here as soon as those are whitelisted and add that OEE metrics to this dashboard as well. Okay, here's just a preview of what we're going to be making today. We're going to pretty this up a little bit as we go through with some conditional formatting, renaming some fields. Okay. Before we start a dashboard, I just want to start us with a little story that I did from a dashboard that I made for a manufacturing site here in Michigan. So I made a dashboard that displayed all of the line status for the entire assembly or like molding department area. And I got asked for it to solve, well, I want to see what my hour by hour type of rate is compared to my standard rate for that WorkCenter area. I want to know if I'm up or down for the rate. And okay, I was like, oh, we can make a dashboard to do that. But one of the things that I did not ask is, right, how will we use this information? Where will they use this information? I just heard dashboard on the floor for people to look at. Okay, so the actual dashboard, we had it up on 2 really big TVs up in the air. They were about 10 feet off the air. There was 55, let's say, WorkCenters in each dashboard. And that's a lot of information to display in a dashboard. So kind of as we're going through like how to plan a dashboard, hopefully you learned some of the questions you should ask to avoid my blunder of having a really pretty dashboard on the computer screen, but 10 feet in the air, it's a dashboard for ants. It was really hard to see that dashboard. All right. So first thing we want to do is to define like the clear objectives of what that dashboard is, right? What decisions will we actually be enabling for people to do their best work with real-time information? And then who's going to be using this? How will they use it? Okay. And then the other piece that I got into a little bit in my little anecdotal story there, it is environmental planning, right? You should think about where the display is going to be located. Will it be in bright sunlight? Will this location be in a place where many people will be viewing it at once? Right? These kind of fundamental questions, which are really easy to overlook, especially when you get excited about making a dashboard, they will overall affect the complete format of the dashboard, text, sizes, placement, the color scheme, you name it. Like it could even make the dashboard not be one dashboard, but many, depending on where it's located at and what size of text that you need to see. Okay. So the IntelliPlex dashboard hierarchy, it kind of follows a structure here. So I have this little table here where it's a dashboard. Inside of that dashboard, we have visualizations. Each visualization has data, and what I'm calling a display is how that data is displayed on the screen. Is it a chart? Is it a grid? What colors and otherwise styling is that display going to have? In addition to like some of the easy things to think through is, well, what type of data are we going to use? Are we going to use these real-time data sources, which need to be submitted in as a case, and they are reviewed kind of one by one for them to be whitelisted into IntelliPlex? Whether that's what I'm calling raw SQL, which is SQL that you have made in the SQL development environment, or is it IntelliPlex SQL, the low-code environment that you've crafted your data for, or it could be an Excel doc, which like in this case, right, it could be something like your production plan for the day, or it could be your quality call outs that may or may not have a place inside of Plex, depending on how deep you're implemented in quality alerts. You could start with an Excel sheet and just refresh those every day to display. Okay, demo starts now. I'll switch my screen here. Okay, so the first thing that I want to do is, let's start with something easy. Let's start by building a WorkCenter log. We're going to use this WorkCenter log in really many different places inside of this dashboard here. We're going to be using it in our, let's see, our WorkCenter log grid that we showed up on in the preview there. We're going to use it on our ribbon chart. Okay. I'm going to, first thing inside of IntelliPlex, I'm going to click this add here. I'm going to create a visualization. And then the very first thing, if we think back to our IntelliPlex hierarchy chart, well, I'm going to select what data that I want to use. So I'm going to select in here is our operational data. And I'm going to select part. And now it's going to ask me if I want to be enterprise or standard. I mean, really the difference is if you want this to be allowed to see cross PCN data or single PCN data here. So this being a production dashboard for a single WorkCenter, we probably want to pick standard. And I want to start with the, I'm going to type in my table here, and I'm going to type WorkCenter. And I'm going to select WorkCenter log. Okay. Now this dropped me to my visualizations, and if you guys are familiar with the WorkCenter log table, well, it requires more data than just the WorkCenter log. If you look at the SQL here, it's got a lot of great things in it, right? It's got the WorkCenter key, it's got a log date for date time the thing happened, how many hours it was for, status, description. Oh, that's great, but we have a lot of these keys here. And I don't know about you, but I don't know what this part key of 1023895 is. Usually people don't refer to them by the part number. So let's add a few joins here. Now, from my experience, the easiest way to do joins, right? You can either select up in here and click insert join. I found is the easiest way to do that. Well, I'm going to first find the type of data I want to get for this. So I saw a WorkCenter status key there. So I'm going to type into my search box here.
Hey, David.
Yeah.
I have a question that might pertain to when you have a chance. I know you told me to interrupt you if I had a good question, but someone asked if you could show how you navigated to the My Workspace for those who haven't seen it.
Yeah. Yep. All right. So I will step back. Okay, so how I get into IntelliPlex there. So, I mean, first you need to have the role to be able to, you need to have a builder license, right? A builder license will give you the menu of IntelliPlex Analytics. So the IntelliPlex Analytics option here, you click it, and it's going to take you right through to the IntelliPlex Builder dashboard here. And I have in here, like in this home here, I have a couple of views here I've recently worked on, shared with me, my workspace. This workspace, which I'll show you how to put content here, just automatically will display what your content is, or it's called my content, which let me do that here. I'm going to save what I have here. I'm going to go to this folder, my content, which is your workspace. I'm going to call this production, I guess WorkCenter log. Okay, so now that I have that in my WorkCenter log webinar, if I refresh this, you can see, as soon as it's loading here, all right, so we can see just automatically that it brought in my WorkCenter log webinar that I created in your workspace. So really, if you share anything into your My Content folder, which is really best practice as you're building something before you have that published, where you and only you can see the things you're working on until it's validated and really tested by the user group there. All right, so I'm gonna go back to my joins here. So I have up a refresher. We have the WorkCenter log here. I want to find some additional data so that we can, oops, I need to spell correctly. I should cancel out of that. Cancel. All right, so I want to bring my WorkCenter status. Okay. So I typed in the search box here of WorkCenter, and this is showing me all of the different WorkCenter tables that I can join. So I want to bring in WorkCenter status. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to grab that with my mouse. I'm going to drag it out to here. By just dragging onto the screen, it knows that you want to do a join. Now, that isn't the only thing you need to do for a join. IntelliPlex version 2 is smart enough to try to help you do joins. It's sometimes really good, but you'll see in this case, it's not so good. We did join the Plex customer number, which is correct. It automatically joined the WorkCenter status key, correct. But if you know the WorkCenter status table, a description in the WorkCenter status table is your status, like a production, an off, and idle. So the WorkCenter log that we saw, right, we have clock out, production recorded. That doesn't seem like something we want there. So I'm going to remove that join there. Just going to delete the condition. And I want to keep this as an inner join, which means that I'm only going to display data that has that direct match, which should be true for WorkCenter logs. It's always going to have a WorkCenter status with the log. Okay. Now, with that, it joined in here my WorkCenter log, my join, and well, this would be kind of boring if we just had WorkCenter log with the date time. Well, now we have status in there, which is which is great, but let's add some more color by adding the production record. I'm gonna drag on production. Now this one is gonna be a little bit different than the last join that we had. So the last join that we had, we set up the join as an inner join, meaning that if there's a match, we wanna always display it. And if there's no match, we don't wanna display it. So sometimes in the WorkCenter log, you don't have a production record for every time the log gets written, right? Every time you've changed the WorkCenter status, right? It will not have a production record associated with it. So I'm going to change this from inner to left outer. And well, it looks like IntelliPlex did a pretty good job on these joins. It did the customer number, we got the log key, great. WorkCenter key, great. I'm gonna hit OK. I'm now going to add some additional color here. And I wanna know about scrap records. So I'm gonna drag on my scrap here. It's gonna be the same type of thing. We're gonna go through and evaluate the join. Right click on the join. And I'm gonna remove these as they don't quite match what I was looking for here. So I just click this little add option here where that pops up my new selections. I'm going to go through here to the scrap record, and at the WorkCenter, if you record scrap, well, you have generated a production number. So I'm going to select production number, and then I'm going to type production, or I guess that product, and then I'm going to select production number, and this is coming from this part B production. Great. And then not every production record has a scrap record associated with it, so we want to have that as this left outer here. I'm going to say OK. Here's an example of our data. Below here, we have, I think, almost everything we need to do a pretty basic WorkCenter log. So from this, I'm going to click into my visualization. And the first thing I'm going to do before I do anything is I'm going to click save. If you get in the habit of saving often and frequently, you'll thank yourself every time. Okay, so I don't want to have this chart here. So I'm going to click into my visual here, and I have different visualizations here on the right that I can select. So I've got this grid, which most of the time you look at a WorkCenter log, well, I want to look at it from a grid. Okay, and then usually you want to know, well, for WorkCenter logs, well, when did this happen? Okay, so we've got the log date there. We probably don't need to have back until 2008. Now I'm going to put this, our test P, or I guess our development PCN, it doesn't have a lot of synthetic data in it. So I'm going to select from the beginning of February here, just because there's not all that much data in here. We are working on doing something really cool with process flows that'll create a bunch of synthetic data for us to display production records, job planning, and all that but we've got at least a good selection of data here to look at. In the actual production dashboard here, what you would want is this pointing to, which I'll show you. In the outline here, there's a variable here there is today's date, you would probably want that WorkCenter log to equal today's date, right? You don't really want your production log to look, well, since the 1st of February. So by putting it today's date, it will make that so it only looks at, obviously, today's date in that log data there. All right, going back to our fields here. So the next thing I want to know is my description or my WorkCenter status. So I've got this WorkCenter status here. Now, that doesn't seem right. That says description, and I just called that a WorkCenter status. So we can change that by right-clicking on that row, and we can rename it.
David, I have a couple of questions when you're at a spot.
Yeah.
Can you use a variable to show this month instead of today's date?
Yes, you can. That's more than probably I have time to answer that with justice. I'll put a detailed post on that in the developer user group. But
Okay.
essentially, we would use like a function inside of IntelliPlex to take today's date, transform that to like the 1st of the month.
And then another one that maybe will need to follow up, but that the data sources on where to find the data, but if you have any tips or tricks on someone else who isn't as familiar with the data sources on knowing which ones to use.
That would probably be a good webinar in itself to answer that with full justice there. I will give you my Boy Scout try of giving you a Reader's Digest version of that answer there. I think that'll be a good webinar for us to come back and do just on that for finding data. But my favorite screen to use is this database table information inside of UX. Okay, so let's kind of think back to our WorkCenter log example here. So I've got this, well, I know that I want WorkCenter log here, and I know I want scrap. So I'm gonna type in here saying I don't know what the WorkCenter, how to find the WorkCenter log. So I can do a column name. So I can do WorkCenter log. Well, you wanna look at the WorkCenter log. I may or may not know what database it's in, but if I hit search there, this shows me all of the things that could have a WorkCenter log in it, okay? So I've got this WorkCenter log, which I can see inspection modes, work requests, and I should be able to see key in there too. But anyways, I'm basically just typing in this column here, and it should be returning me I'm trying to find something that's not in the table, but it should be returning me every table that has that column in it, okay? So with that, this kind of narrows down the list of things that could have, this one has WorkCenter %key in there, which percents inside of Plex are all wildcards. So if you don't really know what you're looking for, you can put a %, okay? So I didn't see, in here I didn't see the WorkCenter log, but so if I take that off and I know I want to look for a log and key, well then boom, there came a WorkCenter log. Now there are a lot of hidden nuance that you'll just know as you go along and kind of learn which tables to pick from, whether there's valid data in there or not. There's a very specific use case to talk about briefly is the control plans versus control plans 2, right? There's some tables that are only used for very specific customers who have a very specific use case. And I guess the unfortunate thing is that you will just learn to avoid those tables as you bring those into your IntelliPlex dashboard that may or may not match your configuration. So as you're bringing through your data in here, you always want to validate that it matches a screen in Plex versus what you're displaying. Okay. So I'm going to go back to this dashboard here. So I just changed the WorkCenter status to off. I'm going to bring in the color here temporarily. Nobody wants to see this type of color here. I'm just doing this as a cue of what I want it to look like. We're going to circle back there. And then I'm going to put in here, like, the next important thing is our log hours for, well, how long did you sit in this status for? And then I also want to bring in my production quantity for, well, how much did I produce on this WorkCenter for good parts, which you'll see here in a little bit that we have quantity for production. We have, as soon as I find her here, we've got scrap, it's under production here. That also has a quantity, which I'll drag that out. I'm going to rename this quantity once again from that kind of generic description of quantity. It's called this prod Q2I. And then let's call this scrap quantity here, scrap Q2I. And you may or may not want this type of data to the floor, but I mean, depending on your organization, it's nice for operators to understand what the cost is. And this is usually like a company decision to display that. One of the things to really consider doing this type of scrap, past life, we had an operator using one of our boxes, which, right, if you think of Amazon boxes, right, everyone puts a pretty low value to boxes. This specific box was purpose built for shipping, like in cargo on a boat. So it had an extra felt and extra like rigidity to protect our parts. And there were like class A parts in automotive where they need to look really great. An operator was taking their paint pen and starting the paint pen on this box, and they didn't realize that that box cost $55, and they just threw away $55 every shift. By exposing that, that operator, they questioned that expense and called over to the supervisor, who did verify, yep, that box is $55, and they picked something else to start their paint marker on. Okay, so one thing I want to do here, so we have this log date time here. I think this is a military time. So we can format this data here by either picking the, because right now it has hours, minutes, days, years, it's seconds. So if I just click there for format, okay, that's our format there from time. But if I have a specific time that people aren't used to looking at that military time, oops. I can switch this around here. So I think it's HH. Okay, I'm not gonna guess here. But anyways, you can change that date time to be exactly what their operator is expecting to see, whether you want AM, PM, or keep it military time. Then the other thing, if you're looking at this, so we have in here this WorkCenter status. Right now, it's just not colored, just looks okay. So we can come into this WorkCenter status here and we can do conditional styling on it, which is really cool. So if we do The unfortunate thing is if the description is, it doesn't take our rename into account, but if we say it is equal to value and we can say off here, we can come into here and we can put a gray on it. We can add another condition here and description, value, production, and then we can put a green here. And I think that's all of our, I'm going to build it out from that perspective. And then the other thing to call out as well is if you want to style something specifically, you can go into this format section here, and then you can pick whether it's this general, which is this like the overall visualization you can change things on, or if you want a specific column to be a certain size, like if we wanted the WorkCenter status to be type or 12-point font, I can change that there and have the WorkCenter status get updated. And I'm going to remove this color because we already have some color in the dashboard. And I'm going to click Save. I'm going to remove my heading because I'm going to be using this in a dashboard. I'm going to click Save here. That looks pretty good. Okay, so we have really three additional filters to build out, or different visualizations to build out. I'm just going to close this visualization. So we have our WorkCenter log. I'm going to start my dashboard here so you can see what, this is going to, we're going to be working towards here. I've got, again, I clicked this little plus icon up here, clicked it, clicked Assemble Visualizations. And I think this is really great. Like, this is one of my favorite things with IntelliPlex version 2, is that it gives us some starter kind of dashboard templates, right? This grid 2x1 probably closely matches what we want. I'm going to click it. Now, it created for me my dashboard here. Okay, so this dashboard, right? I need to, in order to get content to show up here, I'm going to drag out something that I have built, which you have the full navigation inside of IntelliPlex here, so you can reuse these components in different locations. So I'm going to drag out my WorkCenter log webinar. I'm going to drop it there, and you can see my little WorkCenter log component here. Okay. Now, the next piece that I'm going to drag out, which I'm going to cheat here a little bit for time's sake and spend more time on the ribbon chart and just briefly go over this scrap component here. Oh yeah, we should, because it's got some text that looks a little funky there. All right, I'm going to click Save here, and I violated my rule there of save often. I could have just done something bad to my dashboard by dragging on that second piece. But just good habit, whenever you make a big change, you save. Okay, so I'm going to go into the scrap chart just so you can see how I brought it together. I did the very same things in IntelliPlex here. So I built out my data, which this one was pretty simple. I just had scrap and WorkCenter. And then I did the same type of filtering that I did before. I picked the 1st of February. And I picked one of my favorite visualizations of tree maps. And then I drug out really size for the quantity of scrap, scrap reason for the color, and a tooltip, which tooltips, if you hover over it, it shows you that information there. You can also put in here, like I have just one, I just had one tooltip, but you can see any notes as an example. The FST is going to show you the first note, as this is like an aggregation where it adds all the things together. Okay, and kind of going back to our dashboard here, right? That looked a little funny with our text here. It's a little too big. So easiest way to do that is I can right click on my visualization, click style, and all series seems like a pretty good place to start here. And I have type 16 font. Again, this may or may not look really great on a TV where it is currently. I have a really obnoxiously large monitor that I made this one on, which it looked pretty good. So again, going back to the environment where you're gonna have this dashboard at, maybe it looks all right. Tell you that it, click that little pop out there. You didn't miss that. Click the little pop out. That brings the dashboard in its own window. This looks okay where it's at. Like it didn't overwrap the object. But the point I'm trying to make is the correct size may look a little funky in the designer because where you're actually going to be displaying it, like just on this other tab here, you may want something bigger than what this small screen displayed. All right. So I'm going to click into, not that one, on the visualization piece. That is where you do all of your changes for display. You don't do it at the dashboard. I'm going to go into here, all series, and let's just change this to a 14-point font. Click save. It updated my font size. And you've got the full listing of what you want to display on here. Okay. And then I had something else here too. I didn't want the header on there. All right. Okay. The other visualization that I had created, I did this one inside of SQL, which you can create it in SQL or you can create it in the IntelliPlex kind of data designer there. But I created a, this type of chart is usually called a ribbon chart, where it shows you in a really thin band of what your overall activities are for the day. So I'm going to open that up here. I'm going to try and save 10 minutes at the end there for some more questions. All right, so I'm going to remove my heading again here. And though I guess the one thing I did not notate, which is really important when you get into production dashboards, is when you're in the settings of the visualization, there is this auto refresh here. So this will be really important for when you're using a live production data source, or if you're using a report server data source that we are using today. You can have your report automatically go out and refresh the data, which is a requirement for your shop floor dashboard. 1 second's a little extreme. We probably would want that to refresh every minute, and that would cause that dashboard to refresh that every minute. So that keeps the data near real time for the production dashboard, right? When your supervisor walks past that screen at the line, you don't want them to have to refresh the report or or refresh the page to get the latest information, you want that information to be latest and greatest when they walk up to it. Okay. So this side of things, there's a little bit of a funny thing here you're seeing in the log here, which is the WorkCenter status colors. I did not find a great way that we can color these. You can see here for the data side of things, there wasn't a great way to specifically pick which color. I looked at the documentation. It can be added, which I'll probably do a blog post on this on how to change that manually on the report, where you need to open the source code and update it to override the colors. But it is possible to change it. It's just for some reason it's not exposed to the display here. All right, so I'm gonna hit save here because I did remove the header and the footer there. And I'm gonna go to my dashboard here, and I'm gonna take in my ribbon chart, put that there, and I'm gonna hit save. And really, here's my dashboard. You can imagine that this is on a really big screen on the shop floor. These can be updated so that you can click into the dashboard and have it take you to either another dashboard or visualization inside of IntelliPlex, or it can take you directly to the screen inside of Plex, which is really, really cool. Where if you wanted this, like this WorkCenter log, this ribbon chart here, to take you to the actual WorkCenter log or the actual WorkCenter inside of Plex, that is done with this. This is auto link with target, and then you can choose choose where it goes to, whether it's a screen or not, and you need to put in the individual URL for where it needs to go to, and then you can pull information from this data source to be able to take you right to that record there. All right, I hope this webinar was useful for the folks on the call here. Like I said, we're going to be doing a couple different follow-ups on this, as this is a really huge topic to get through in one webinar. Want to do one that, like, when the production data sources get whitelisted inside of IntelliPlex, we're going to convert this dashboard to use some of those production data sources there. And then also there's some additional stylings and like data formatting that I want to get into an additional webinar. All right, with that, let's do some Q&A.
Okay, you ready for some questions? I'm gonna throw them at you here. Can we use a SQL query for the data source like we can with regular IP reports?
Yes, you can. It happens in the same way that you would do that inside of, for version 1. I've got this example here, and I expose this to IntelliPlex by having this IntelliPlex synonym checked, and it shows up inside of your company folder.
Okay. Let's see. Oh, someone had a question. I don't know if you can easily go back to show again where you put today's date filter.
Yeah. So I put that, it was on the visualization itself that I used. So you can either have that filter on the individual visualization, or we can have it actually on the dashboard itself. You can have filters to choose, which would be another kind of element that you can use and pass that filter through to the individual visualizations. And then from the individual object side of things, really, I just drug out this dimension here, and I added it to this filter, which kind of hard codes the visualization. And if I go into edit, you can see here how I set it here. That I picked a single date. Like I said, we can override this with an IntelliPlex function to pick a formatted today's date, or to try to come up with this value programmatically, so it's not just fixed.
Okay. Let's see. Oh man. Sorry, my window just collapsed on me, so I can't read them. There was something about conditional formatting, and I can't remember what it was related to that I'm trying to find here. I think it was instead of like the color formatting, could you do like a high and low limit to make it color coded? Let's see.
Yeah, you can do that. So these conditions can be, and I picked a pretty simplistic example, but we could do this real quick. We could do a condition here, log hours greater than value, let's say 4. Let's take these, hold on. That's conditional in the description. Let's do that in the log hours.
Yeah, so I did find the question finally. It said, so that if it's beneath the threshold value, it would turn red automatically, was the question.
Yeah, yeah, I can show that real quick here. I'm gonna do greater than, just because we've got pretty good examples there in the dashboard, but we can do that where it says log hours greater than 4. We can do that as let's increase the text a little bit. Let's make it bold. Let's change the text to red. Let's change the background to yellow and apply. And you can keep stacking these conditionals there, and they can be based on any data inside of your data auth here on the left here. And really, this full palette here gives you, I mean, anything you can do in this palette here, you can do inside of a conditional, even like these drill down conditionals where you want to go to a different report or not. Good question.
Okay. And then someone asked if there's an ETA on when the real-time production data sources will be available, and will those be published for our use?
Yeah, I believe they'll be published for you guys' use. That is a question that is near and dear to my heart. I was hoping that we would have them available for this webinar, but there is some like performance implications that are being evaluated. So each production data source, you can think of the same ones for process flows. They need to be gone through and evaluated if they're going to cause performance issues or not by exposing them. So I guess the best thing to do would be to put a case in for the ones you want to have evaluated, and then they'll get evaluated with the engineering team, and then they should be available for everyone to be able to use.
Okay.
But no ETA yet.
We have a few more questions, but I know we're at time, so we can follow up on these questions afterwards. And everyone will get a copy of this recording emailed to you. It will be a little bit of a delay on that. It's also will be posted on our YouTube channel, but the person who handles all of that is out. So I would say that it'll probably be around mid-March before those videos are distributed out.
Yeah, like I said, if you guys have any other questions that come up between now and then, you feel free to reach out to me directly or reach out on the developer user group inside of the Plex community. We're going to be, it's probably a good space for you all to be involved in as the developer user group. as we're going to be doing user groups throughout the year and deep diving on a lot of these specific issues. Instead of trying to do this big overview, we'll dive in like on one specific topic, like a session on just conditional formatting or drill throughs to really dive into like the nitty gritty and get into the nuance of it. And I thank you guys very much for your time today. Kind of reach out if you have any other questions, comments, or if you'd like us to give you a personalized one-on-one type of training for IntelliPlex. Be happy to help you out the best we can.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Hope everyone has a good day.